Hi, everyone. Hey, welcome back to our weekly book study. You are the happiness you seek. It is my joy to be your host most weeks. Next week, I won't be your host. Jenny Beal will be your host. I'll be traveling next week for the next 2 weeks. So next week, Jenny Beal will be our host, and the following week, Susan Telford will be our host, and the co-host will be next week is Jody, and the following week is Arthur Gay. So I'll be on holiday starting next week.
Oh, Arthur Gay
so I'll miss the book study, but it will still happen, and I'm very happy to be.
Looks like Russell Bosworth.
A little bit.
You're muted, Bill.
I'm muted. Okay, sorry. So this week we're looking at chapter 5, the essence of meditation. And it is my joy to be co-hosted with Rosalind O'Rourke. Hi, Rosalind.
Hi. Hi, everyone.
How you doing?
Oh, it's great to be here. Thank you.
So Rosalind is a good friend of mine and Lisa's, and she's been on this path for a long time. And she has been, she's a psychotherapist, and she's a oneness coach. She also was talking about, she does anagram. She coaches that, and she teaches it. And so she's well versed in these ideas that we'll be talking about today. And she loves Rupert, as all of us do. And Rosalind, I'm very happy to have you to share this chapter with me this week, chapter 5. And where would you like to get started? We have a lot to cover, so we'll try to go through it. And then we'll start checking the chat about halfway through and pick up your questions or comments. Mm-hmm. And then we'll go until 1:15, because we added 15 minutes to each of our times, in so that we could, we can take questions. If you have legitimate questions, that would be great. And or if you just have a comment you want to make, that's fine too. So let's get started. What would you like to look at on the first page, Rosalind?
I would like to reiterate what Rick just said. What an amazing chapter. And I have been through all of the people who asked questions. I have lived those experiences. And just because you mentioned my bio, I'd like to say that for anybody who's just joining us now and doesn't have a history with Rupert, when he uses the word happiness in the title, he's not talking about the person being happy. He's talking about what it is, our true nature that's underneath a person. And that's very confusing to people because of language. Happiness I associate with getting a new car, or the stuff, or my success, or the doing. And he's talking about exactly the opposite. It's our being, and it's not the doing. And that comes out very clearly in this meditation chapter. So we could start with the quote on top. There's a huge silence inside each of us that beckons us into itself. And these mean even more when you start, these words mean even more when you start having the meditation experience, meaning the truth of what we are all the time. Then that silence grabs us. But I understand, because I've been there. I always like to relate to where I've been, because that's where many people who are starting are. And what? Silence, luminous, empty. Those words are so hard if you haven't had the experience. And when you start to have the experience, it's like, oh yeah. So I would go on to the next first sentence unless you want to speak to
Well,
that.
I just want to say thank you for bringing our attention to the difference of or the pointing of who it's pointing to, who it's speaking to when it's talking about happiness. I think that's an important distinction, because often if you're new to the path, or if there's a certain statement that's made, and you're not familiar with the translation, you can assume that it's speaking to the body person, and it's not, and so you miss the context of what it's speaking about. And I like what you just said, that that some of these words seem or could seem foreign to us when we first hear them. If we haven't had the direct experience, it can be like because quiet or silence, or that those words, they're not understandable to someone who doesn't have this understanding or hasn't had this experience. They'd say, well, what do I want to be quiet for? I want to be in the party, man.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. So thank you for that.
Yes, you're welcome. And that first sentence says what he says repeatedly in many, many different ways throughout the chapter. The recognition of our true nature is not a new experience that happens to us. It's the revealing of the noticing of what we always and already are, but often overlook due to the exclusive, and I love this word, fascination with the content of experience. And I want to say that even words like content of experience used to throw me, like content of, because I was so focused outside that content of experience is describing the outside versus the inner. And if you're only outside, it doesn't make any sense, because what are we, we're comparing success in my job to the purse I bought. I mean, which content, so it can be very baffling. But so the way I translate that is the fascination with the outside world, whatever it is for you, if it's work or a relationship or a hobby or your self-worth or the body in any way. So I just like to try to clarify that, because I have been confused for years, even with the word object of experience. I thought he meant objective versus subjective. I was totally confused. I think it's because of hypnosis. It wasn't because I wasn't smart enough. It was because I was so hypnotized by the outer world that I wasn't ready to hear what he was really saying.
Right. Yeah. And in the next paragraph, he says, it is we, awareness, who being intimately one with all experience, seem to lose ourself in it. And that's the adjustment that is made after many, many, many times of catching yourself, and really after understanding what the ideas are pointing to. Then and how many times do you hear people say, I don't know why I keep drifting into the experience. I keep getting caught or triggered or pulled in. And it's because of the addiction of identity, that we thought we were this, and we habitually are drawn to that addiction, or what he calls fascination, and later on in other content, he calls it the adventures, the adventures of the experience, or whatever. But we just get lost in it until it becomes familiar, and then it sort of just it's excuse me, it seems to become more of an abiding experience, and you realize that okay, so this is the normal, and that other human experience, that's the thing that's not the normal.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And we could say typical instead of normal, because then we get all confused with what would be normal, like a normal temperature. But I think typical really speaks to it without any judgment and without any goal or purpose. It's just we're describing what happens, right?
Yeah. True. Yeah.
And the second part of that sentence also describes why we're so fascinated, because the last part after what you read says, thereby overlooking our innate peace and happiness. And until we've had that experience of the juice, the payoff, that's always there, the love that we've been looking for from the outside, the worthiness, the boundlessness, the eternity, until we've had some version of that experience, why wouldn't we look inside when felt like there was nothing there? Like, we have to have an experience.
Yeah. Well, there's something that shows up. It's for most of the people I've talked to, there's something that I've talked to about this. There's something that shows up early in our childhood that causes us to wonder.
Mm-hmm.
It seems like so many people say, yeah, when I was a little kid, I used to have this. And I think that's why kids just, they live in such this amazing fantasy,
Mm-hmm.
especially at the young, between the years of like 2 to 8 years old. They live in this fantasy world.
Yeah, and a lot of people say just exactly what you're saying. And that was not my experience. My experience of childhood was very dark. And that's why I love this light so much more. Never had it.
Thank you.
Never had it.
Yeah.
So,
Nice.
Yeah.
We're on page 33 for someone that was asking. Okay, Lisa Renee, we're on page 33. Okay, go on.
So I hate to skip over any of it, but I think what he's talking about in the rest of the page is abiding, what is really our home, what is being veiled, and an invitation. He keeps inviting us to go into realizing just by relaxing into our true nature. I would go on, but if there's anything you'd like to pick up, it's all good.
Well, I do like this one description at the bottom of paragraph 4 that says, once we have disentangled ourselves from the content of experience, our true nature simply shines by itself.
Yes.
Just as the blue sky is revealed when the clouds disperse.
Yes.
And that sings to me. I'm sure it sings to a lot of us, but it sings to me to hear that that description of what I am, what you am, is shining in itself, by itself, and it's just a shining of being. It's a shining of what we call light or presence.
Yes, so beautifully said, and by you and by Rupert. And then what we cannot become, what we already are, and we cannot be what we are not. It's so beautiful. And in all the years of self-help, that's why I'm a oneness coach and not a psychotherapist practicing anymore, because I don't want to fix anyone. I'm not interested in the thoughts and the feelings in that way. I can't.
Yeah.
Right?
You're not the first therapist that I've known that has said, you know, I'm not fixing people anymore, and they change their vocation or their angle or their, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's so beautiful. Okay, shall we?
All right, so let's go to page 34.
Mm-hmm.
What do you see on this page that jumps out?
Well, I love all of it. I have a particular desire to move quickly through some of the pages because I'm in love with the last two. But so I so much on this page is highlighted. Look at my page; it's all highlighted. But I would say you can go ahead of me. How he describes the direct path from the indirect. It's so important. He's awakening us to how we've been lost when we've been still focusing in meditation as in a change, in an experience that we're expecting to have, and the indirect path, which he describes in many of the paragraphs, are so clear on the bottom when he says the return to our being under the direct path is referred to in many ways in the religious and spiritual tradition, constitutes the essence of meditation. And when he says a little bit further down, Raman Maharshi referred to it as the sinking the mind into the heart. And then he goes on to say what Jesus said. But is there more you'd like to talk about with the dissolving and allowing attention to widen or deepen or go further back rather than out to a breath or a focus? What would you like to say?
Well, I would just, I like how he points to the two, to the true experience of meditation as not being something that we do. It's not being, because for a long time, people would say, yeah, I'm meditating, or I'm going to, or when you invite, even when we open a guided meditation, which I love to do. I love guided meditations, but it's really just a pointing to resting. It's just a pointing to being. And I love how he just makes it so clear that meditation is this. In the second paragraph, he describes it so beautifully. Meditation is the relaxing of the focus of our attention from its content, the disentangling of ourself from the drama of experience, and the subsequent emergence of our essential nature of silent awareness. Mm-hmm. And I just, this helps me because awareness, awareness is always available, and meditation is the same. Meditation, we're in meditation as in conversation. We're in meditation right now, even as we're talking about these matters. It's a meditation of the heart. It's a remembering of being, and it when you have that, when it's understood in the way that Rupert is offering it, it comes in through a different kind of a faculty of understanding that becomes an experience.
Absolutely. And he often says meditation is what we are, not what we do. So when there's any doing involved, even in our description, it's only the remembering of what we are. And that can be even if we're feeling overwhelmed, where he talks later in this chapter, if we remember our true nature, our body can still feel overwhelmed at the same time.
Yeah. Yeah. And we're not so pulled into it
Mhm.
as we're in that primary understanding, that primary knowing. We're not so pulled into the experience. It can happen and will happen. And yet it's the power of its identity, or the power of its pull is lessened.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, very much.
He says in the third paragraph, this recognition of the essential nature of ourself is traditionally referred to as enlightenment, awakening, salvation, or satori. However, enlightenment is not an extraordinary, mystical, or exotic experience. Thank you, Rupert, for he's like a broken record on this,
Mhm.
and he is helping the world of spirituality, the world of consciousness, with this clarity.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And his example of the rubber band, isn't that here, where he talks about our attention, and it's like the rubber band, but he says, I love this sentence, in the absence of anything to hold on to, attention can no longer stand, and it is dissolved in its source of pure awareness.
Yes.
I love that word dissolves, because it to me, dissolves means it's not a doing, it's a happening. It
Right.
just dissolves. When you think of something like a pill dissolving in water, it just has its own time, and it takes care of itself. Our only job is to abide and remember, and the rest takes care of itself. It's an experience, and it expands and it grows and it nurtures itself, and there are no limits, no boundaries, and we can sit back for the ride. We're just not used to it. We're used to the ride being outside.
Yeah. Well, and one of the beauties of what you just stated is the abiding is it's an accompanying, it abiding accompanies our attention as awareness. So as we relax in as awareness, that abiding, it's like a expanding, or this is my experience anyway, that it's an expanding visceral experience that that sort of accompanies the experience as awareness.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yes.
The
Yes.
paragraph, okay, thank you, Kay. Yes, we're on right now. Are we on page 35, Rosalind?
We were on 34, but we can move on to 35.
Okay, we were on 34. Where's the rubber band on 34?
I might have, rubber band might be on another page.
Okay, so we're on page, we're moving to page 35.
The reason I thought of the rubber band is he uses that same word, attention, with a tandare, and that might be another page.
Yeah, right.
It's also good. It all merges, to me. Yeah. I like the word aliveness that he uses. So on page 35, he talks first about the return to our being and its inherent peace is often initiated by an investigation, and hence its name self-inquiry. However, once the inquiry has brought about the letting go of everything with which we normally identify ourselves, no further investigation is required. Self-inquiry gives way to self-abiding, self-remembering, or simply resting in being as being. I mean, it says it all. And it also says we're not two. Right there in that paragraph. If we're self-remembering and we're abiding and we're resting and we're no longer in investigation, in self-inquiry, all of a sudden the oneness is apparent.
Yeah. Well, there is a caveat to what that abiding, or that when that what brings the abiding forward or into experience is the letting go of everything with which we normally identify ourselves. So there is a caveat to and that letting go can take a long time, or seem to take a long time, because we're so addicted to the flavor, to the experience, to the identity of this.
Yes. And the good part of that is that it never works. It only works a short time, a brief time. So we always come back to suffering or the disappointment in the object that we got involved with, because the high is always temporary.
Yeah.
And so that is the gift that brings us back home.
Yeah. Yeah. There was a question on the board for Jenny from Cindy Good. Jenny B is content of experience also internal thoughts, feelings, emotions, etc. Just curious.
I would say for sure it would be interesting to hear what Jenny says.
Yeah, well, we'll see. Jenny will write on the board, and we'll get an answer for that for you. So let's keep going. And what else do you see before the first question here, Rosalind?
Before the first question.
Yeah, the italicized on page 35.
Yeah. So the essence of meditation is simply to be aware of being. And as we are always aware of simply being, so we always know we're alive, right? Meditation ultimately is not something we do. It is what we are. Can't say that enough. Can't say that enough, right? Right? Because the hypnosis wants to go back to being.
So Rosalind, I'm going to go meditate. Well, you mean you're going to do what you are? Right? Yeah. So I like reframing that, because it does allow you to experience meditation in a whole new way. You're a living meditation, and the body mind, the personal self, it just accompanies what you always are, and gets in the way of it often. But once you rest as the awareness of experience, as the awareness of love's presence, that's a living meditation experience.
Absolutely. I want to tell you one very quick sentence. I paid $250 once to Deepak Chopra in a big group. So he was making massive amounts of money to give everybody a mantra that wanted it. And you, in about 30 seconds, you got a mantra from him. But can I tell you, before I was to go with this mantra from my meditation, I already was so disappointed, because I was very aware that I was looking for something else. I was looking for love. I was looking for approval. I was looking for a connection to God. I was really not even wanting the mantra. I was wanting something from Deepak Chopra. So I think it's very, very useful to become aware of what we're looking for, even when we're in the outside world, even when we're doing a meditation, using the breath, which he will later tell us when we get to it, is an important step for some people, a mantra, a breath. But it's also useful if you're going to do a formal meditation like that, I think, to ask yourself, what am I looking for from this? Am I trying to get somewhere? Am I trying to get something? And if I am, maybe the self-inquiry is really a fit there, rather than to do the old thing that we're drawn to do again.
Right, right. Well, chasing after the wind. Sorry. Let's look at the last paragraph on page 35, where Rupert says, he's talking about the mantra. He says, for instance, a mantra, although it may be only a single syllable, is the distilled essence of centuries of understanding and is considered as such to contain this understanding encoded within it. Not only does the repetition of such a sound bring the mind to rest on a single object, but the pre-verbal understanding that lies within it, in the form of a subtle vibration, gradually permeates the mind, infusing it with its innate intelligence. And the thing that really calls my attention to that paragraph is oming. When we om, and I learned to om when I was with Muji for a little while, and we would start every project at the ashram with 3 ohms, whether we were on the cooking team, making dinner for everyone, or a construction team, or didn't matter what it was. Before we would start anything, we'd all join hands and we'd have 3 ohms. And it absolutely does cause you to suspend the mind. The mind just sort of sets aside because of that vibration. And it has a quality that Rupert just described in that paragraph.
Mm-hmm. Yes. And there's the added pieces besides the vibration that carries you. It's the ritual, it's the intention, it's the joining. All of those he speaks to on another page, add to that experience with the people, with the Om. It's all of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's a question here from, there's a comment from Alice. I ask when suffering, what is missing here for me? And so this is her own self-inquiry that Alice uses. And William Price says at 1232, and if one is aware of this searching, ask, who is looking for myself?
Yes. Yeah, both of those are great.
Yes.
And Alice's question right away tells her where she is, because when we're in the true self, our true nature, nothing is missing. There's that experience of contentment, of the emptiness that's actually being filled. And we all lose that experience from moment to moment. But when we know of it, we know where home is. We know where to go back, and we know where we are. We're out in the world. We're believing in the body and the world. So yay, it's not a bad thing. Yay, we know.
Yeah.
What is it that is aware of lack? What is it that is aware of suffering? That is what we are.
Yeah. That's typically the one I use, is the one you just stated. Mm-hmm. What is it that's aware of this experience? And then Holger said, what do I assume myself to be? So whatever that little anchor is for you, that sentence that helps you, or just pausing as presence, it allows you to remember, to relax back as the essential self.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. What do you think, Bill, of the teacher and, having a teacher and the importance of a teacher? In India, it's very, very important. Your teacher has to deem you to be speakable of this material. You have to have your teacher say you are ready to speak or you don't speak. It's zip it up. Here, it's quite different. Anybody who, I've heard Rupert say, anybody who is willing to talk about their experience, go for it. So it's a very different tradition. And he's very sweet the way he talks and the way he holds Francis Lucille. You can always tell it when he talks about it. And we're a little, I would almost say phobic in the United States about how teachers are revered, like the way Moody is received and so on. What do you think about teachers?
Well, I think Europe and especially that the fragments of the Soviet Union. I think a lot of the Europeans that I met, they look for gurus more so than we in the West. We put teachers on pedestals for a little while, and then they disappoint us, and we take them off, and we blame them for stuff. But as far as teachers, I think teachers are important. I mean, Ken Wapnick was my teacher. The Bible was my teacher. Ken Wapnick was my teacher. Muji was my teacher, and Rupert is my teacher. Muji is still my teacher, and Francis Lucille, all of them. And I don't. But as far as gurus, I think, the culture that you're in, it likes gurus. If you're in India, there's a guru thing, and I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I think you have to let all of it go. You have to Rupert had to let Francis go. And Francis had to let Jean Klein and Atmananda Krishna Menon go, and his teachers. We all have to let our teachers. If it's a Course in Miracles, you have to let that go. You have to let this go.
Yes, yes. And I think that word dissolves is really here. You're right, you let them go, but it's not a doing. That when you find your inner teacher, when you find the abiding, when you find your true nature, and you find that love that originally is for the teacher, and the way he so sweetly describes here how that love was embodied in the shirt that was left. And that's like a transitional object that little kids have when they carry their blanket. It's a love, and they're holding the parent close to them with the teddy bear.
Yeah.
And then they don't, usually you give that up.
Yeah.
But you don't have to do it most times. It just dissolves.
Yeah. He qualifies it as a symbol of Francis. And I think, Rupert paves the way for us to see things in a, and I'm going to use your word, in a typical way that normalizes it, that makes it okay. Well, if it's okay for Rupert, certainly okay for me, because he's my teacher. Yeah. Let's keep going.
Yeah. So are we going to go over the breath, the mantra, music?
Well, the only thing on the mantra, I like what Rupert speaks to on the mantra, where he says in the third paragraph down on page 36, he says, the object could also be the breath. It is significant that in Latin, both the word spiritus, from which our word spirit is derived, and the word anima, which refers to the soul or individual, can be translated as breath or breathing. Thus, the breath was seen as the principle in a living being which connects it to its divine or universal origin. Focusing attention on the breath is considered a powerful practice because it not only steadies the mind, but also infuses it with its transparency, thereby preparing it for its final dissolution in the emptiness of awareness.
Mm.
And I would say that that's probably one of the biggest distractions for people that that have meditation experiences, or that are guided, offer a guided meditation, is when they give their attention to the breath instead of what is aware of the breath.
Yes. That's
I think that's a subtle little thing that's missed often
yes.
by great teachers
Yes.
and people that are so-called meditators.
Yeah.
So I think that matters. So
Yeah.
take it for what it's worth. It's the awareness of the breath that we're looking for.
Yes. And I really want to emphasize what you just said. And if you're a person who has a ritual and a meditation practice that you love that uses the breath, do that and add what Bill says. Add onto that what is aware of the breath, because it may open doors. It may be just the turning point in your experience.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
super important.
So there's a question on, or something from Amy at 1238. ACIM says we are all teachers and we are teaching all the time. What are we teaching? What we believe to be the truth. If I believe I am only a body, then that is what I will teach. When I learn to pay attention to what I am teaching, I also discover what I believe is true. Yeah, Amy, you could retranslate the word teacher to we're all awakening. We're all awakening mind, or awakening. And I know that this isn't a true statement, but we're awakening awareness. We're becoming the awakening experience. We're self-realizing. And as far as teachers, I try not to use the word teachers too much. And I think that must be, if you're in Rupert's retreats, you will hear him say, I'm not a teacher. Well, he is a teacher. He's my teacher, but he doesn't like to call himself a teacher. Yeah.
And I think, was that Amy that had that question?
Yeah, Amy Habel. Yeah.
So I would add something else there. The course is also psychological as well as spiritual. We used to call it a psycho-spiritual text. I don't hear that anymore. But if I'm a mother and I'm yelling at my kids, what I am teaching them at that moment is that I believe in my emotions, I believe in my feeling, and they at that moment, I believe I can disregard their experience with my experience. So I'm just using an example where I'm not even aware I'm teaching, which is what the course is saying, but I am revealing in my actions, in my thoughts, in my feelings, exactly what I believe in, that I might not even know that to say that.
Yeah. That goes with that old adage that says, do what I say, not what I do.
No, it's the other way. It's don't do what I say, it's what I do. That's
right,
what
right. Yeah,
right.
right. Exactly. Thank you for that. All right, let's change, let's switch gears here and go to page 37.
Yeah, this is just such a beautiful paragraph here where it says, third paragraph down, many of us enact these sacred rituals in our homes without necessarily realizing it. A vase of flowers on the mantelpiece, a bowl on the table, a carefully prepared meal, a painting on the wall. All such objects are invitations, such an important word there, invitations to the mind to return, again, important word, from its adventure in the past and future to the sanctity of the now. And look how kind he is and how non-judgmental he is when he talks about adventures into the past and future. That's just a story, right? But the sanctity of the now, what great description is that? In which we stand at one with our experience, divested of the subject-object relationship. So there's no other. We are one with the painting. We are one with the people in the room. We're one with the floor and the ceiling and the air and the outside. And we didn't do anything. We just noticed the painting or the flowers or our presence in the moment.
Yeah. It really makes you enjoy life more. This description, it just because your filter is now joining consciousness. This bodysuit is joining consciousness as an understanding of our connected oneness.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then
he says halfway down on page 37, where he starts in the second group of paragraphs, that if we are to find the peace and happiness for which we long, above all else, we must, in one way or another, directly or indirectly, disentangle ourselves from the content of experience and recognize our essential, uncolored, unqualified being.
Mm-hmm.
So he's offering this sort of a stepping back, zooming out, what you would probably describe as neti-neti, as essential to the disentanglement. And then, of course, we go back up another paragraph and we join and include all of those things that we stepped away from. So just temporarily, to identify the self, we do what he described as the disentanglement.
Mm-hmm.
Yes?
Yes, so beautiful. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And I think it's important there. I love the word disentangle, but directly or indirectly. So what is he talking about? Is this a big doing? No, it's just being aware of the now. Where is our attention? Where are we focused? It can happen faster than we can say where we are. It's just that the focus, where is our focus? And we know in a second where our focus is. And it's so gentle. We don't go, there we go again, or, nothing. Oh, we're on an adventure. We got entangled. It makes me think of peanut butter or something. It's sticky. You got stuck for a minute, and now you're disentangled from the bubble gum or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Funny.
But it's so gentle. It's so loving. That's, to me, the essence of what to carry with us when we have these adventures.
Yeah.
That loving heart that's part of abiding in our true nature.
Yeah. Well, let's turn the page because we're running out of time.
Okay, thank you.
Let's look on page 38.
All right.
And what do you see on 38 that you would like to highlight?
Well, that's when we have the rubber band. So do we need to go over that? It's a great thing, but it takes time. What do you think?
Well, I mean, in my mind, we can come back to that. There's some very powerful statements on following pages that I wouldn't want to miss.
I agree.
So let's come back to 38 if we have time.
Okay, let's do it.
Yeah.
Okay.
So let's go with the question at the top of page 39. Why do we love ourselves?
Why do we lose?
why do we lose ourselves? Yeah. Why do we lose ourselves so easily and frequently in experience? Rosalind, I've had hundreds of emails or questions like this come in to the Teachers of God Foundation. And I've heard in satsangs with Muji, Rupert, Francis, all of them. Why do we lose ourselves so easily and frequently in experience? And Rupert says, it is we, awareness, who, being utterly, intimately one with experience, become lost in it. As the visionary poet and artist William Blake said, eternity is in love with the production of time.
Yes.
I love that statement. I think that statement says it all.
Yes.
Yeah.
I agree.
And then we lose ourselves in the production, in the experience, in the play, the excitement, or whatever you want to call it, the addiction, it also the energy. It has an energy attached to it.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, and you notice how for the first time in this chapter, I believe, he's saying, and it is we awareness, not I awareness, we awareness. Do you see that in the beginning of that?
Yes.
That's very important to me because it's
Yes.
very inclusive, and it's what everybody does until they don't.
Right. Yeah. Until they don't. And it's a funny paradox because it stops of its own when you stop trying to stop.
Yeah. And I think here, one of the underlying things that I get in the answers, and you're right, everybody asks this question. It's a universal question on the path. And it comes down to, what do I believe in? Do I believe in this true nature and this abiding home that we've been talking about? Or do I really believe in the outside world and the stuff that I can get and the accolades and whatever it is that we follow? When we truly ask ourselves in inquiry, what do I believe in? Where, like, do I 70% believe in this true nature or 100% believe in the outside world? Well, it's going to catch me even more if I'm truly honest about what I believe in. So for me, it cuts down, and it can change from moment to moment. That's the beauty of it. It's not that the beliefs stay at a certain percentage. In my experience, they go up and down. It can go up if you had a wonderful night's sleep and you're well nourished. You can more easily, or it seems like you more easily abide. And other days not, but it's not a judgment. Your true nature is still your true nature. It's just where you've been adventuring, and it explains it to me so that I can go back home.
Yeah. Well, belief is a whole other thing, and I think we'll just keep going with the content of the pages here. Let's go to page 40.
Okay, that's great.
And there's a question, because he talks about meditation more on page 39. And if we move to 40, I think we'll be able to end some of the most beautiful content here. So on page 40, at the top of the page, there's a question that says, it's just that there are times when the thing that's supposed to be, I'm not reading so well right now.
It's just that there are times when the thing that's supposed to transpire during meditation transpires, and there are times when it doesn't.
Right. And this is where Rupert has a sort of gotcha. he fixes it. He lets them know right away, nothing is supposed to transpire during meditation.
Clear, right?
Yeah. The thing that is supposed to transpire during meditation is the one thing that is transpiring all the time. That is the presence of your being, the fact of being aware. Yeah.
And then the person says, well, then I'm not meditating. And I write down, ha ha, because I love it. We've all been there. Oh, noticing I was trying to get somewhere. Oh, I thought this was going to take me. Oh, that's what they told me. Oh, you mean I don't have to do anything? And
Right.
I wasn't
Right.
meditating? Wow.
Yeah.
And
There's
then
a there's a question that says, it's down a little bit further, that says, I think I have residues from decades of trying to meditate in exactly the wrong way. And
yeah,
then Rupert comes back and says, most of us do,
yeah.
but the years of meditation practice have not been wasted.
Mm,
They have brought you to this understanding.
yes.
However, now that your previous practice has done its job, don't keep repeating it.
Wow.
Don't be, yeah, right. Don't be like the one who has finally arrived on a beautiful Caribbean beach after a long, arduous journey and keeps asking, where shall we go next?
So important.
Yeah.
And then the next question, it's not so easy to drop it. It feels like an ongoing process. And he says, the idea that you have to drop something is itself part of the old residue of believing that meditation is a battle between one part of your mind and another. I remember always discussing, oh, my thoughts, I couldn't get away from my thoughts. How good was the meditation was how much you were thinking. It was a battle. Like, could you get rid of your thoughts? These old habits are the remnants of the storm clouds. This is so good, that linger in the sky for a while after the storm. I love this. If you struggle with them, you simply perpetuate them. How true is that, right? What
Yeah.
we fight with persists.
Or what we push, what we resist or push away, or say, I'm not doing that anymore, or
100% right. We do it again. Like, how
Yeah.
fast are you going to do it again?
right.
And the sky never struggles with the clouds. We could take that one sentence. Just say that.
Yeah, isn't that great?
Yeah, I love it. I
Yeah.
love it. And then why should it? It is not implicated by them. How great a sentence is that? The sky is not implicated by the clouds. Implicated. What a brilliant word to speak to the non-relationship between the clouds and the sky, between who we are and what the suffering is. There we go. We're not implicated. Our true nature is not implicated by the outside world or the thoughts and the feelings, the suffering.
Yeah.
It says it all.
He says, in your welcoming, oh, no, he says, yourself. Okay, that's what you just said. And then it says, just let the residues of this old conditioned activity slowly wind down in your welcoming, but disinterested presence.
Oh, I love
Sooner or later, this residue effort will die of neglect.
that. Isn't that beautiful? Neglect.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh.
I love it.
Oh,
Yeah. Yeah. So it's just like,
yeah, cuts.
it'll die of neglect.
He's so clear. Yeah.
Rick said something here I thought was pretty cool. He said, let's see, where did it go? It said, there is nothing we can do, just be open to the invitation. And oh no, above that at 12:56, he said, can there be a wrong way? Because Rupert said that there's a wrong way. And I think there's Rick is right. I think there's a concession there that for a moment, it seems like there's a wrong way, but is there a wrong way? I don't know if there is.
No.
Yeah.
No, because all was supposed to be, because it is. Yeah.
Right.
Oh, yeah. I love this. Don't make a distinction between everyday life and meditation. Even when you go to sleep at night, feel that you remain resting in and as your being. In fact, in deep sleep, you don't really fall asleep. The world falls asleep in you.
I know, right?
Oh, that expansiveness, that expansion is right there.
Yeah.
And then he says it
Yeah.
again, meditation is simply what we are, and what we are never leaves us. That's why there's never any mistakes. It's the only thing, which is of course not itself a thing, that cannot be separated from us. We take ourself with us wherever we go. And we all know that to be true. I'll let you look at the last paragraph. It's beautiful. Too.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I like I like what this is pointing to, and even where Rupert or me or you, we say, you know, maybe don't do that. Or when you give an idea, you're really giving something to the mind that believes that it's a person to relax its attention on the object of experience long enough to remember itself, long enough to self-realize. So it's a concession. It's not true. And in the don'ts or the wrongs, or even what you just said, don't make a distinction between everyday life and meditation. It's just giving the mind something to relax its focus on, so that the truth is revealed.
Yes, exactly. And that word is so important, revealed. And it's just a pointer. And pointers are helpful because when we resist them, then we see again where we are. Okay, I got a pointer, and then that's not what I'm doing. That's not what I'm I'm not allowing it. Okay, that's where I am. Okay, there it is. And then I can, that will reveal itself. The true nature can be revealed anywhere, anytime, with anything.
Yeah.
It's always with us. So it's always available is another word.
Right. Well, and then in this last paragraph, Rupert says, I put 3 stars on that sentence that said, don't make a distinction between everyday life and meditation, even when you go to sleep at night. Because, and I love that statement that we just read, that you don't really fall asleep. The world falls asleep in you. Now that's a total mind blower, man.
Yeah. So
because most people, I don't know how many times I've seen or read the question in a Rupert, either an essay or a retreat, where someone says, well, where is awareness when I'm sleeping? Right? I've had that same question, and this answer resonates. This answer definitely is a sensible, logical answer.
It's beautiful.
Yeah.
Poetry. It's really poetry.
Yeah. He says, and then he goes on to say, meditation is simply what we are. He's probably said this 5 or 6 times in this chapter. And what we are never leaves us. It is the only thing which is, of course, not itself a thing that cannot be separated from us. We take ourself with us wherever we go. If I am depressed, I am. If I am lonely, I am. If I am agitated, I am. If I am ecstasy, I am. Whatever I am, experiencing or feeling, I am. Allow awareness of being to shine through your experience, irrespective of its contents. Then you will find yourself at peace at all time. Yes. And there it is. I mean, allow everything to be just as it is, from a place of abiding presence, and it's self-resolving.
Yeah.
it's
And
self.
resolving and dissolving.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. Popeye was right. I know. I have that statement too. Popeye was right. I am that I am, and that's all that I am. That's right. Jenny says, what's important is that meditation is not a doing. So no wrong. You can't do it wrong. In other words, unless you are trying to do it, which is not possible. What's important is that meditation is not a doing. So no wrong, unless you are trying to do it, which is not possible. So it's just.
We're off the mark when we're judging. So we don't even have to go to what the subject is. You know, when we're judging, it's not an opening, it's a closing.
Yeah. So we have time to go back to page 38 and just look at that real quick.
Okay.
At the question, it said there seem to be so many different types of meditation. How do we decide which one is best for us?
Mm-hmm. So then,
And go ahead.
So all meditation practice can be divided into two categories, each defined by its use of attention. In the indirect approach described above, attention is focused, and in the direct approach, it is relaxed. That's so important. In order to distinguish between them, it's helpful to understand what is mentioned by attention. And then do you want to get into the attendare?
No, I don't want to read the whole thing. I just want to say, like, where Rupert says, when we say, I know a thought, or I perceive a tree, the word I refers to self-awareness, the subject of experience. The I refers to the subject of experience. That would be the seeing is the subject. The subject of experience that knows or is aware. And a thought, or the tree, refers to the object that is known or perceived. Knowing and perceiving are the pathways of attention that connect the subject, I, to the object. And so I think this is like the recipe for realizing how attention works.
Yes. And you know, Bill, you said something very profound there. And it's a step up from where many of us start. You said the subject is the seeing. And when people are beginning, they would say the subject is the I. And
right.
It's really helpful to see it the way you described it, because we get very confused because we bring with our former definition of I with us, and then it becomes completely confusing. But if we stay with what you said as the seeing, there's no confusion. There's no confusion.
Right. It just helps to bring it in.
Yes.
In the understanding.
Yes.
And then in that next paragraph, it starts with the directing of awareness towards an object of experience could be likened to and this is the rubber band, to the stretching of a rubber band. In order to stretch a rubber band, both of its ends must be secured. This sets up a tension within it. Directing one's attention towards an object in meditation is like stretching a rubber band between 2 points, between the subject that knows and the object that is known. It requires an effort. Whilst this effort may initially be necessary to gather and steady the mind, ultimately, it creates a state of tension that cannot bring about peace.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
If attention could be considered the stretching of awareness towards an object, then the ultimate meditation is the the relaxation of the movement.
Mhm. The
Yeah.
effort of attention must be relaxed once the mind has become accustomed to resting steadily on its selected object. We let go of the object and allow attention to flow back to its source of pure awareness, just as the rubber band spontaneously reverts to its relaxed condition.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so the thing that's important is the part of that paragraph that says, once the mind has become accustomed to resting. So initially the mind isn't all, it's not really interested in resting or letting go or relaxing. And that's why we have to give a concession to the mind often to have it relax.
Mhm.
And then the experience, it takes its own, it moves into play of what happens when the subject is no longer attached like the rubber band, no longer attached to the focus of the attention. It relaxes into its natural state.
Yes. And earlier today you used the word addict, and addict to describe this being that's outside in the world. And addicts are not interested in the middle ground. Addicts are interested in the high and getting away from the low. And the middle ground is the relaxation is not of interest. But once we disidentify with the addict and relax into what we might be, even the inquiry of that question of what are we if we're not this addict, if we're not this doer in the world, what are we? Find out for ourselves. That's the beautiful part of self-inquiry.
Yeah.
And that's what he's asking us to do, to know, to discover our true nature for ourselves.
Yeah.
Yeah, beautiful.
Well, this has been a great chapter 5. And thank you, Rosalind, for co-hosting today. This has been my joy. Thank you for that. And for most of you don't know, Lisa and I did the Camino a couple of times. And one time Rosalind was with us with a group of about 20 of us. What a fun time that was. Every morning for 2 weeks, we would wake up and we'd have breakfast and we'd walk for 10 or 15 miles. And often Rosalind, she was way ahead of all of us, her and Elaine Falvey. And so much fun. I really enjoyed getting to know you that way, Rosalind. And thank you for being part of this book study as well. And for anyone, we are actually going to India in December. And if you're not on our newsletter and you're interested in the India trip, write to me at billfreeonline@gmail.com. If you're on our newsletter, you'll see information about it. It's in December of this year for 3 weeks, 2 different tours to India to see some of the sacred sites. And if you're interested in that, just inquire, just find out. You can reach us that way. And next week, I'll be traveling to Florida to see 2 of my kids and 2 of my grandkids. So Jenny Beal will be hosting. Thank you, Jenny. Appreciate that. And let's see, she'll be co-hosted with, Jody Urquhart will be the co-host, and the chapter is 6, The Ultimate Prayer. And then the next week, I'll be coming back from Florida, and Susan Telford will be our host, and she will be co-hosted with Arthur Gay. Thank you all for being here, and I won't see you next week, but I'll see you next week. Love you all. Bye, Rosalind.
Bye. Bye, everyone.